A man ruled hell for 10,000 years, and endured 10,000 years of celibacy. His only female consort is a grotesque tentacled multi-eyed monster. The first thing he did upon returning to Earth, search for someone with 2 eyes and a mouth, and no tentacles. Although he had only been gone for 5 Earth years, he had actually spent over 10,000 years in hell. In the beginning, to survive, he ate beasts raw. The experience was akin to eating garbage. Eventually he gained the power of devouring. Any demon touched by this ability would have their flesh and powers absorbed entirely. He used this ability to eliminate all Hell's archdukes. Step by step he ascended, claimed the Demon King's throne, and became Hell's eternal ruler. But even with everything Hell could offer, he wasn't satisfied. There were no phones, no computers, not even comic books to read. Just a bunch of dim-witted subordinates. He once thought of settling down with a partner here, but female demons were scarce in Hell, and most looked utterly bizarre. The only one resembling a human was Lilith, Queen of Succubi. To other demons she was the epitome of beauty, dubbed the most beautiful demoness in Hell. But every time Kong Wu saw her he felt unnerved. With her appearance, how could any normal person be interested? After relentless pestering by Lilith, Kong Wu finally decided to return to Earth. Lilith and his subordinates' pleas only strengthened his resolve. For 10,000 years he had been preparing for this. After devouring the last Archduke of Hell, everything was finally ready, as he removed his armor and approached the altar. Lilith and his loyal dog looked on in sorrow, but he remained unmoved. According to the Dark Mage's instructions, infusing the weapons of the 7 Archdukes with immense magic would distort time and space, creating a rift. Kong Wu acted without hesitation. He had waited too long for this moment. Under the surge of his powerful magic, the 7 statues opened their eyes. The Dark Mage announced the portal was ready. Without looking back, Kong Wu stepped through it. Even though he had no loved ones or family on Earth, he was determined to escape this hellish place. Lilith sobbed uncontrollably behind him. "My lord, are you really leaving me behind?" Kong Wu quickly turned around, and softly told her not to cry, but in truth her tears were terrifying. Lilith felt elated inside. "You spoke such heartfelt words to me. Bathed in your love, I feel like I'm about to explode." As she spoke, bubbles gurgled from her body, and she declared she would follow him. Kong Wu glanced at her by chance. That single look left a permanent scar on his mind. Without another word he leapt into the portal. Lilith's voice echoed from the other side. "My king, no matter what happens, I will always follow you." Only then did Kong Wu turn back. "Seeing you only disgusts me. I hope we never meet again." Not long after, Kong Wu landed in a mysterious space. He examined the unfamiliar devices before him, when suddenly a voice announced, "Core of the Rift detected. Activating Gaia System's spatial defense mechanism." Kong Wu was confused about what was happening. The announcement turned into a warning. "Alert! Core power of the Rift has exceeded tolerable limits. Warning! Tolerance exceeded. Core power of the Rift has surpassed system capacity. All spatial defense mechanisms activated. Gaia System operating at full overload." Suddenly a bolt of lightning struck Kong Wu. "Failure. Complete elimination of the Rift Core deemed impossible. Restrictive sealing will commence." By this point Kong Wu realized he was in danger. He tried to act, but it was too late. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a dense forest. He decided to check his physical state first. As he thought that, an information panel appeared before his eyes. The first thing he noticed was a red highlighted line. Before he could think further, a beast's roar came from nearby. A group of goblin-like creatures charged toward him. Kong Wu was puzzled. He had never known Earth to have such creatures. He intended to clear them all at once. Realized his magic power was extremely weak, as the goblins closed and he had no choice but to use other skills to slay the creatures. He wielded the blade power he gained from devouring Spinark. As he killed the goblins, his level unknowingly increased to level 4. He remained confused about these strange creatures. What puzzled him more was that he felt his body grow stronger with each level up. He then used his devouring power. Through devouring he gained information about the monsters, and even recovered a bit of magic power. This realization shocked him greatly. After all, magic power should only exist in Hell. This made him suspect that this might not be Earth. His resolve nearly crumbled. The only reason he endured Hell for so long was his firm belief that he would return to Earth. That moment he faintly heard a scream. It wasn't a sound from monsters or beasts. It was human. He immediately activated Velothi's speed power. He desperately wanted to meet this person. Didn't matter what they looked like, as long as they had 2 eyes, a nose and a mouth. And no tentacles. Absolutely no tentacles. He fervently prayed as he ran. Finally he saw a faint figure. They had 2 eyes, a nose, and no tentacles on their body. Tears of joy streamed down his face. As for the goblins attacking the human, Kong Wu wiped them out instantly. He reached out his hand to her. When their hands touched, he felt his entire body melt. "Thank you so much for saving me," she said. "I'm Han Chushui." Noticing his trembling, Han Chushui asked, "Are you okay?" With a trembling heart and shaking hands, he suddenly pulled Han Chushui close and shouted, "Marry me." The girl was stunned. Kong Wu realized he had been too impulsive. "Sorry about that. My name is Wu Zhongyu. How are you feeling?" Han Chushui was about to say she was fine, but her legs gave out and she fell onto him. Something fell from her pocket. When Kong Wu saw the rectangular phone, he finally confirmed this was Earth. However, he kept his composure and continued talking to Han Chushui, even using his clothes to dress her wounds. He was surprised at how easily he could converse with her. Back in hell, to ensure he didn't forget human language, he forbade all monsters from speaking demon tongue. It seemed to have worked well. He casually picked up the phone and handed it back to Han Chushui. Stealing a glance at the time on the screen, it was the year 2023. It had been 5 years since he fell into hell, so these creatures must have appeared during those 5 years. Through his conversation with Han Chushui, he learned that this was an E-grade dungeon accessed via a portal. Humans who entered to hunt monsters were awakened players. Han Chushui had recently awakened. She was only level 6 now. Curious about why someone as strong as him was there, she asked, but he brushed it off. Soon after, Han Chushui said she wanted to leave. Kong Wu, worried about her injuries, offered to support her. Han Chushui hesitated to accept, but he convinced her in 2 sentences. Accepting help in such times is a virtue. Kong Wu felt proud of his words, thinking he could adapt to Earth's life naturally. Soon they arrived at the portal. Kong Wu found it strange. The dungeon didn't look like Earth, and such a massive portal. How was it maintained without spatial rift technology? Han Chushui's call snapped him out of his thoughts. Then they stepped through the portal together. Kong Wu was stunned in the next moment. Everywhere he looked, there were people with 2 eyes, a nose and a mouth, and no tentacles on their bodies. And only humans were present. It seemed he truly had returned. Han Chushui silently observed the strange man. Then she bowed slightly and invited him to her home for a meal. Kong Wu's mind instantly wandered. He thought his springtime had finally arrived. After all, he thought refusing kindness isn't virtuous. "Well then, I humbly accept." Just then 2 patrol officers approached. They asked to check both of their player IDs. This made Kong Wu uneasy. How could he have such a thing? He pretended to search his pockets. Then he widened his eyes, raising a friendly gesture toward them. This was Dantalion's blind perception ability. It could distort another's cognition, tricking their eyes into seeing what he desired. Patrol officers dazedly mumbled, "Check complete." Kong Wu slipped away with ease. Soon they arrived in front of an apartment building. Kong Wu felt nostalgic about the modest surroundings. The narrow staircases, cold railings. It finally felt like he had truly returned. Most importantly, as his mind wandered again, he suddenly heard Han Chushui call out, "Mom." Kong Wu froze in shock. So she really just invited me for a meal? Suppressing his disappointment, he politely greeted Han Chushui's mother. Upon hearing that Kong Wu saved her daughter, her mother expressed deep gratitude. She openly admitted their family wasn't well off, and could only offer a simple home-cooked meal. Kong Wu didn't mind at all. It was already far better than hell. While Han Chushui went to help prepare, he borrowed her phone. He wanted to learn about the current world. The long-forgotten sensation of holding a phone excited him, but he reminded himself not to get distracted. Soon he found information on major events over the past 5 years. On February 22, 2018, the world underwent a massive upheaval. Portals began appearing everywhere. From these portals, countless monsters emerged. Against these monsters, modern weapons proved useless. The global community quickly formed the World Union Organization. Not long after the first player appeared in Country M. Their identity remains a mystery to this day. Soon the number of players around the world surged. They continued to resist the monster invasion. Kong Wu noticed a connection. February 22, 2018 was the day he fell into hell. He might have entered through one of those portals. Its exact location remained to be explored. Shortly after dinner was served, Kong Wu's eyes widened in shock. On the table was the kimchi stew he had longed for. He carefully scooped a spoonful, his hands trembling as he tasted it. Under the watchful eyes of Han Chushui and her mother, he began eating faster and faster. He recalled his time in hell. And now finally tasting kimchi stew, he cried uncontrollably. The 2 women quietly watched, not daring to interrupt. Through his tears he thanked Han Chushui. Thank you so much, Shui. This is so delicious. Han Shui replied that she should be the one thanking him. Kong Wu then asked if he could have another bowl. Han Shui brought the entire rice cooker over. While he focused on eating, the wall behind them collapsed. The blonde man shouted loudly, Han Shui, come out here. Who gave you permission to go near the portal? Han Shui glared at him angrily, telling him to leave immediately. The blonde seemed surprised by her response. Han Shui shouted at him, I said leave. Who do you think you are? Barging into our house? Let me tell you, I'm now a full-fledged player too. Blonde sneered mockingly, you're a player now? That's impressive. He suddenly punched a hole in the nearby wall. Stupid girl, with your low-level status, you dare act tough in front of me? Han Shui stood in front of her mother, warning the blonde not to come any closer. The blonde man cast a cold glance, terrifying Han Shui's mother into trembling. In the next moment he dragged Han Shui toward the door. Come with me to the Andras Guild now. Han Shui resisted with all her strength, as if that guild were a man-eating hell. But she couldn't escape the blonde man's grip. Let's go already. I've arranged a great team for you, he sneered. Han Shui bit his hand fiercely. In pain he flung her aside. The blonde man's veins bulged in anger. Stupid girl, you think you can survive in this world just by being kind? You'd better obediently become my sacrifice. Han Shui's mother stepped forward pleading. Please don't do this to Shui. I'll earn more money for you. The blonde man shoved her aside. This enraged Han Shui, but the blonde man remained dismissive. After all, she was just a newly awakened rookie. Meanwhile, he was a double awakened advanced player. He grabbed Han Shui by the neck, offering you to the bosses. They'll make me even stronger. Suddenly he heard a slurping sound. He turned to find someone calmly eating nearby. What's with this guy? Kong Wu seemed oblivious, focused solely on his meal. The blonde man let go of Han Shui in frustration. He walked over to the table. He called out to Kong Wu but got no response. So he stepped closer, and kicked the table over with one foot. Kong Wu stared blankly. Suddenly he screamed hysterically, falling to his knees before the spilled food. The blonde man was bewildered by this reaction. Even Han Shui's bad mood lightened significantly. Stop wailing like a ghost. Get up already. As he said this he kicked Kong Wu. Kong Wu suddenly glared at him, making the blonde man feel a pang of fear. It was as if he was facing a man-eating demon. Kong Wu rasped in a hoarse voice. You dare to spill my kimchi stew? The blonde man suppressed his fear, igniting flames in both his hands. Just as he was about to attack, a yellow light shot toward him which he blocked. Han Shui shouted for Kong Wu to run. Instead Kong Wu charged at the blonde man, unleashing the blade power. The blonde man quickly threw a punch, but Kong Wu dodged it effortlessly. He glared at Kong Wu. Noticing his speed wasn't extraordinary, he clenched his fist to attack from the left. The next moment pain erupted in his abdomen. The blonde spat out bitter liquid. He tried to counterattack, but Kong Wu's roundhouse kick hit his waist first. Despite bleeding from his nose and mouth, the blonde man realized Kong Wu wasn't as strong as he seemed. He trapped Kong Wu's leg under his arm. However, the next moment Kong Wu's other leg swung up, smashing into the blonde man's face. Kong Wu broke free of his hold, and swung his left arm toward the blonde man again. This time it was another feint. The blonde's abdomen took another hit, forcing him to collapse to his knees. Before he could process what happened, Kong Wu stomped his face into the ground. Blonde tried to push himself up, but a sharp blade pierced his left hand. No matter how much he struggled, Kong Wu's expression remained fierce. You haven't even atoned for spilling my kimchi stew. Despite his predicament, the blonde remained defiant. That lousy stew? You idiot. Hearing this, Kong Wu grabbed him by the collar. You dare call that lousy stew? For the first time the blonde felt fear. His voice began to tremble. Before he could say another word, Kong Wu slammed his face into the ground again. Roaring in anger, he kept pounding. You dare call that lousy stew? Now when I shout 1, you shout kimchi stew. When I shout 2, you shout it's the most sacred food. Do you understand? Kong Wu shouted 1. The blonde shouted kimchi stew, and was met with another heavy blow. Louder. Say it with reverence like a prayer to the gods. But the blonde kept getting it wrong. So Kong Wu began teaching him step by step. Han Shui watched in stunned silence. After repeated hellish drills, the blonde finally managed to shout the phrase in a tone that pleased Kong Wu. Only then did Kong Wu pull the spike out.